right. All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, October 2nd, 2019. So first order of business is a public comment. All right, so any member of the commissioners?
They're having a sidebar.
No sidebars? We're in order. They're watching us now. All right. General business, item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So any member of the public wishing to comment? Okay.
Rick Clausen, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, general. There we go. Okay, Rick Clausen. So, all right. So if Rick Clausen can come forward to the podium here. All right.
Thank you. I've just become aware that a liquor store at 439 State Street in El Pueblo Viejo has applied for a transfer of that liquor license. And right now it's not clear to me whether it's a transfer to a new owner at the same address or at another establishment also on State Street. But 2 months ago, in the first week of August, I filed a complaint about that address, about the neon signage at that address, along with 9 other addresses in the 400 block. And so I'm keeping tabs on that, and I hope that if a new liquor establishment comes to that address, that the board, because it's an EPV establishment, the board will get a chance to take a look at that and perhaps correct any signage violations that currently exist. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other member from the public wishing to comment? All right. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission, September 18th, 2019.
So moved.
All right. I've got a motion by Uli, second by Drury. Under discussion. Yes, Commissioner Drury.
On page 4.
Commissioner Drury, do you have your microphone on?
Well, it was. Yes, it is. Now.
It's on, but it's not up.
It's on me, but it wasn't on. Page 4.
Okay.
I just have a question under staff comments. What is footer language?
Where are we?
Which
Top
item?
of the page 4. It's item 2.
Footer language.
Top of the page under staff comments. Ms. Plummer stated that the review is limited to the review after final request noted in the footer language.
Yeah, so Commissioner Drury, that's under the project description. You'll see some bold language. That's the footer.
And that's called footer?
Yeah, that's what that's called.
He calls
Yes.
Is there a better way to? Okay. Okay.
It's not the
It's
footer
referring
to
to
the
this
page.
bold type description
like a
underneath the,
Footer to the description.
yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's a CAFR.
Okay.
It's not quite
Okay.
right.
And then on page 5 page 5 under the motion, this item number 6, one commissioner suggested studying tile around the fireplace, which brings to mind just kind of a guy with a pipe and a cup of coffee studying tile around the fireplace. Is there not a better way to say that? Please.
Incorporating.
But incorporating a tile surround, is that where you were going with it?
Well, no, I just, the idea of studying tile around the fireplace just seems so bucolic.
Well, it's a dangling participle.
Thank you.
It
We
should
hate
be-
those
It
things.
should be around the fireplace. A tile design might be appropriate.
Okay, that sounds better.
You still get the cigars, though.
Robert Woolley and I, we know about
Or the
dangling
pipe.
participles.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The
Okay, sorry,
historic,
can you say that language again? Just to,
I don't know if I can remember it.
around the
Around the
fireplace.
fireplace, a tile design might be appropriate.
This is the Historic Participle Commission.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then, any other corrections, Commissioner Drury, before we move on?
I'm
Okay.
done, thank you.
Any other commissioners have corrections, edits? No, Commissioner Lembick? Okay. All right. Going once, going twice. All right. All those with those edits, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
House abstains. Abstains.
House abstains. Okay. Thank you. All right. On to item C, approval of the consent calendar.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Uli,
Second.
second by Drury. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A, 227 East Arriaga, received approval of review after final with the condition that the permeable paver be a warmer tone. And then item B, 1703 Chapala, received approval of review after final as submitted.
All right. So,
Yes, you've
so
got a
with
motion
those,
and a-
so with those comments or that additional condition for item A, does maker of the motion want to accept
fine with that.
All
I'm
right,
fine with that.
second?
Yep.
Okay. So with those,
Excuse me.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. On to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals and future agenda items and appeals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two announcements. One is just general, as we're going to come forward a little bit more on the holiday seasons. I would ask the commission, if you are planning on taking any type of vacation and you are aware of it, just let Nicole or I know in advance so we can schedule you for those hearings and know if you'll be absent. And then the second announcement is regarding a new policy that we're implementing. We mentioned it during the advisory design training a few weeks ago that we're going to be, as of October 1st, requiring applicants to submit electronic plans. So any new application after October 1st and any resubmittals will be required to have electronic plans. Those will be posted online for public review at the same time that the agendas are posted online.
Chair Grumbine, I need to leave at 3. I don't know that it'll be a problem. It looks like a short agenda, but because it's a short agenda, I didn't have anyone come in to replace my seat. So
Okay, gotcha.
So we're home free after you're gone?
home free.
So that's when we can start commenting on parking.
All kinds of things are going to happen.
I think this needs 4 more parking spots.
Mr. Chair,
And Mr. Chair,
I will need to step down on item 2 because I've done work for that firm.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. And, yes, Ms. Hernandez?
on Tuesday, October 8th, which is next week, the 2 landmarks that the commission recommended to City Council, the Shower Printing Building at 1126 Santa Barbara Street by Edwards and Plunkett, and the Luda Maria Riggs Nelson Medical Building will be at City Council for consideration. Is there any commissioner that would like to go and speak to the recommendation? I will be doing a presentation then.
Okay, what's that, you won't be doing a
I will.
Okay. If I do
Is that the afternoon meeting?
Yes.
I will be there anyway, feeling about being reappointed.
Okay. Yeah, it's usually early in the agenda.
and-
Yes.
When?
The agenda comes out tomorrow, so I'll let you know. And I know that the Luda Maria Riggs Society is sending a representative, and the Tobes Group is sending a representative, so it should be
Okay.
a nice ceremony, I think.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Nicole, that's the building across from the courthouse,
It is.
sort of mid-block?
Yes,
Yeah.
the artist
Yeah.
that you know.
Gary Chafe,
Yeah.
old studio, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Drury. All right. So any other announcements? Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
A couple of things.
Commissioner
First of all,
Vena?
from staff. On the fish house on Cabrillo, it's painted red, kind of barn red. Was that approved?
The Fish House on Cabrillo, Commissioner Vena. I would have to look and see if that was approved.
It's about this
Yeah.
color.
What house?
It's about that color.
Used to be the Chart House.
Chart house.
The what?
This is
The Chart
official
House
color.
on Cabrillo Boulevard.
No, that's not been on consent.
Yeah. So,
Well,
Commissioner Vena, I'm happy to provide a formal response at the next hearing as to whether or not it was approved. If it wasn't, it would have to go through HLC review.
Okay,
Yeah.
'cause it's-
Thank you.
I thought maybe it had become a part of the funk zone, and as such, the color was slapped on.
Was the concrete painted red?
All the vertical surface is painted red. Next. At the restaurant, what is it? Excuse me, train of thought. At Playa Azul,
Yes, at 29 East Cabrillo
yeah.
Boulevard. Yes,
No, Playa Azul
yeah.
on Santa Barbara Street.
On Santa Barbara Street.
There is a set of exit stairs, emergency stairs coming out from the inside that are very rickety and very dangerous for anyone to walk on. I understand they're addressing it, but in the process, part of their address is to cut the 100-year-old jacaranda tree that's adjacent to that. And that seems to be their solution to it, and they're going through the state, whatever they have to go through to get this done. I think it's much easier to move the exit a little bit forward and create new stairs and leave the 100-year-old jacaranda. It'd just be a tragedy to lose such a wonderful tree that envelops the facility and gives it character, and it's also a very happy and fine specimen. So if we can look into that, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lenvick?
are you implying that because it's a state park that they don't have to come before us?
I don't know, but in talking to the Trust for Historic Preservation, my understanding is that they're looking into it at the state level and locally, whatever that means.
Does that mean us?
I don't know.
Maybe.
So, Mr. Chair, as I said, I'm happy to do some research on that and provide more feedback on what their proposal is. Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway, it's in imminent danger. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vena. All right, any other announcements or? Yeah. All right. Seeing none, I'll move on to item E, Subcommittee Reports.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Yes, Commissioner Mann, sorry.
The awards committee, the awards committee met 2 weeks ago. However, it was not well attended. Michael was there, Commissioner Drury, and myself, and a board, the president of the ABR, Kevin Moore. But we didn't have any representative from the Single Family Design Board, and we didn't have any representatives other than Kevin from the ABR, so we couldn't transact action. But I emailed everybody yesterday that the meeting will be again tomorrow and that they should show up. So I hope I have a better report to give in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you for that. Hopefully we'll. Okay. Any other subcommittee reports? Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item F. American Institute of Architects, Santa Barbara will announce their 11th annual Architect Tours event. All right.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Good afternoon, Commission and staff. My name is Matt Bosley, and I'm the current Vice President of American Institute of Architects, Santa Barbara Chapter. And I'm here today to present to you an event that we're hosting this Saturday. It's the 11th Annual Architect Tours. I left each of you with a flyer up there.
And actually, City TV, if you could switch to the desk here.
Thank you. I am plugged in.
Or unless you have it there. Is there a... Oh, perfect. Okay.
There it
Okay.
is.
Never mind.
There's a slideshow playing with some of the images of the tour itself. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you today is it's not only a celebration of architecture, it's a celebration of architecture in our community. It took a lot of people to make these projects happen and get them built, including the important input from local design review boards and commissions like this one. The theme this year is art and architecture, or the art of architecture. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the event, it's a self-guided tour that goes from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. Tickets could be purchased online. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And there's a wide variety of projects on this tour, including residential and commercial projects. It's actually a great chance to walk into some homes that you wouldn't normally get to walk into. So I would encourage everyone to attend. Tickets are $80, $70 for AIA members, and $25 for students. I understand that we're still looking for volunteers, so if you don't want to pay for a ticket, you can volunteer for a couple hours and get a free ticket. So I would encourage you to do that if you're interested. To purchase tickets, you can go to aiasb.com. Under events, there's a link to Architect Tours, and you can sign up there. More information is on the pamphlet as well, so if you're here, I'd encourage you to grab one as you leave. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay. All right. So then we'll move on to item number 1. We have everyone here for that. Okay. It's a new object, project design approval and final approval. It's 502 Los Olivos, and this is a Mission Historical Park is designated as a city landmark. Proposal to plant 5 new olive trees at the historic World War I Memorial Olive Grove. Olive trees currently succumbing to verticillium wilt. Verticillium, sorry. Wilt and in decline or severe decline are proposed to be replaced in the future upon the death of the tree. Project includes replacement of an existing park interpretive sign using HLC-approved park sign guidelines, removal of one sign in poor condition, and relocation of an existing boulder with existing plaque closer to the existing pathway. The 1919 plaque commemorates planting of the existing olive trees by the Garden Club of Santa Barbara and Montecito. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Landmark findings are required. Thank you. Welcome. Yes. Okay. Okay, great. And if, please state your names for the record, and then we'll go to staff for additional comments.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Jill Zachary, Parks and Recreation Director.
Nathan Slack, Street Tree
You
Supervisor.
may want to keep that for yourself.
Justin Van Mullen, Project Manager.
Well, no, but I mean, they're
Commissioners
bogging
could
down.
keep sidebars down. Okay, thank you. All right. And is there any notes from staff that want to?
I did provide the 1993 landscape plan in case anyone wanted reference. You all received via email the resolution of the designation of the historical park to reference as well as to understand all that's included in the designation. I'm happy to answer questions. I have the entire park file here for you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So, welcome if you want to present.
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, I'd just do a little bit of an introduction to give you a sense of why we're here today. We've been working with the Santa Barbara Garden Club for the last 4 years to discuss the opportunity to plant some new olive trees in this location as part of their centennial, since they did plant initial olive trees back in 1919. And as part of that work effort, which was placed on hold in part because of the drought, where we really were concerned about the feasibility of planting trees at a time when we didn't have a lot of water. As part of working with them, they also requested, and we agreed, it was timely to replace the existing sign. It's been there probably since 2002, so it's outlived its natural age and then some. And then their desire to relocate the plaque, which is currently along APS, so in a more prominent location. So with that, Nathan Slack, who's our street tree supervisor, will walk through the proposed planting of the trees and other aspects of the project, and then we're here to answer any questions, obviously, about the signage or other issues. the project will be implemented by City Parks and Recreation Forestry staff.
Thank you, Chair. Grumbine and Commission members, we've prepared a few pages just to give a little background and additional information regarding the proposed improvements. This is just an aerial image of the site. The site's identified there with a white arrow. It's located where Alameda Padre Serra and East Los Olivos Street intersect, that specific section of Mission Historical Park.
Apologies, Nathan. If you could just get about as close as I am to the microphone, it's adjustable.
Okay, thank you. We have a few photo images. This is just a legend. In photo 1, we're looking at the proposed site from APS. The site has been delineated. The 5 olive trees will be planted in this area. For reference, the old pottery building wall can be seen in the background. Image 2 is the view looking from East Los Olivos Street, where East Los Olivos Street and Alameda Padre Serra intersect. One of the proposed improvements, the replacement of the existing interpretive sign. The existing interpretive sign can be referenced here in the foreground of this photo. In image 3, the existing interpretive sign can be referenced here in the photograph. The pottery ruins wall is located here in the background. And of additional note are a couple olive trees. They've noted that several of these existing olive trees are in decline for different reasons, including verticillium wilt and just general drought conditions over the last 7 years. This is a photo mock-up of the proposed improvements. The existing sign is to be replaced. There's 5 proposed olive trees. We can get into a little bit more detail about those. They're 24-inch box olive trees. Probably now it's worth noting that the specific species selected is a resistant cultivar to verticillium wilt. So the rootstock that they use has a very high level of resistance to verticillium wilt. So the success rate of using that plant in an area where there's known pathogen can be very successful. And the last proposed park improvement is the referenced memorial boulder. It's located a little further up onto APS. We can look at that on the concept plan as well, and it has the plaque with the language referencing the planting back in 1919 with the Santa Barbara Garden Club. This last page shows the boulder in more detail with the embedded plaque. The language specific to the Santa Barbara Garden Club memorial planting on the plaque. Again, just a close-up of some of the general decline exhibited within the existing olive population. And this is the existing interpretive sign that's being proposed for removal and replacement. In addition to site photographs, we have a couple details taken from the adopted City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation signage guidelines. This is just a panel layout, an elevation, and a side view of the proposed replacement for the interpretive sign. This is just a detail of the proposed replacement for the interpretive sign. And then lastly, this is the proposed revision and the actual signage that's being proposed for the replacement of the existing interpretive sign.
Okay. Does that complete your presentation?
We can look at the concept plan and just to have a better perspective of it. So we looked at the aerial imagery. Here's East Los Olivos Street, and here's Alameda Padre Serra. Where they intersect is kind of where the primary focus of the project is. The boulder that was referenced in the photograph is located here, a little further up on APS. That's the existing location. The existing interpretive sign that's proposed for removal and replacement is located here. On All of the trees shown out throughout the perimeter are existing. The 5 newly proposed planting for the olive trees are here, 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 and here, planted amongst the existing grove, and they've kind of, the intent is that they've been placed near the trees that are exhibiting the most significant decline. The boulder with the plaque in the existing location is being proposed for removal here, and the proposal for the new interpretive sign is here. And that concludes the presentation.
Great, thank you. All right, so now I'll open public comment for this item. All right. So any member of the public wishing to comment on this, please fill out a blue slip. So we'll start with Pauline Kahn. Come forward. Which we did receive an email from you as well, so thank you for that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paulina Kahn. I'm very, very interested in the Mission Historical Park and keeping it as historic as possible. I'm very interested in signage. I was very unhappy with the placement of the gigantic Mission Historical Park sign a few years ago because it conflicted with the other historic wooden signs that were indicating how to get to the Museum of Natural History. And that particular sign used to have a Botanic Garden sign on it too, and I've been trying to talk to the Historic Landmarks, the Sign Commission. This was a couple years ago, and I finally gave up because I kept getting no response. On this particular item, I am concerned about the wilt for the olive trees. The closer you get to the pottery, the lower the land, and the pottery area floods in the wintertime when we have heavy rains. So I would suggest that those olive trees be put as close to the road as possible. It looks pretty good where you have decided to put them. The boulder that has the World War I plaque on it, I could not see on the plans that I looked at on Monday exactly where it was going to go, and I don't want it to conflict with the Mission ruins because it is a totally different historic landmark. It isn't really totally different because the Padres did plant a whole olive orchard there. And if that could be part of the interpretive sign, I think that would be very valuable because there still are olive trees up along Mission Ridge Road up there. The interpretive sign, the current blue and pink, I thought was totally inappropriate for there. And I think something in greens and olives and brown tones would be much better. That is a little in your face, I think. That heavy green, I think a little more subdued would be better, but because that area is tan and brown most of the year, it's green only in the wintertime after the rain. So I think that's something that I would like to hear Historic Landmarks discuss a bit. I would also like to, that was not part of the packet that I saw on Monday. I was looking all over for the sign and I didn't see it. So I don't know whether it arrived later or wasn't there, or
Mr.
I just
Chair,
didn't
we're
see
well
it.
over 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much for your consideration. There are a couple other things. The oak tree on top of the buttress of the probably needs to be removed if we want to save that buttress. And there's also a light.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I ask Ms. Kahn?
Sure.
Ma'am? The sign you're speaking of is at the corner of Los Olivos and Laguna. Is that big Mission Historical Park sign? Is that
That's correct, the new one.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public wishing to comment? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and back to the commission for. Oh yes. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. Forgot about this. Okay. And yes, we did receive from Francesca Galt a written correspondence via email. So thank you. All right, we'll close public comment. Back to the commission for questions.
Commissioner Grumbine, I have a question maybe before we start. Maybe I could share this photo with Pilar. Here is a property, I'm wondering if I should recuse myself, that I own, and here's the park right there. Do you think that's
if it's within 500 feet.
Well, I don't have any idea of whether that is or not.
A city block.
My advice is if you have to ask at the hearing, it's probably better to recuse yourself.
Okay. All right, then I probably should recuse myself.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Hold on. We'll just wait.
Do I need to leave the room?
I think
So you'll
you
need to formally step down and.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, yeah.
The coffee break.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mahan.
Yeah, this comment right here, which it says sign to be replaced with similar frame. Is that, are you talking about this frame here? Is this a similar frame? Is that the frame we're talking about that's similar?
That's correct in terms of the style of the frame and the way it's facing a pedestrian. But it will be smaller than the existing sign.
Is this aluminum now?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I don't know the answer to that offhand. But the sign material, structure material, is what's part of our approved sign plan.
That's one of the reasons that we're changing it, is we're changing it slightly to meet our new sign approved guidelines. So the frame might be slightly different heights. The color of obviously the color of the signs are slightly different, but they all meet our new approved sign guidelines that went through ABR and also HLC.
Okay. Commissioner Mahan, does that answer your question?
No? I don't think so. But another question there's been at the Riviera Association, there's been discussion about this intersection where APS intersects with Las Olivas as being a.
Do we want to look at the even bigger plan for that?
No, that's it's a verbal thing.
Okay.
There's been discussion about fire evacuations, and this is a very, very bad intersection, as I'm sure you know. And we fear that a lot of people will evacuate down APS. And so I had talked to Rob Dayton about this and whether there was a possibility to do a roundabout in the future. Now, he told me that there's no roundabout has been budgeted, but he was interested in that, and I wondered if you had had any discussion with him about this and the placement of the new olive trees.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mahan, we haven't had a discussion with Rob Dayton about the roundabout, but our work with both the Garden Club and the designer is around placing the trees in a manner that would not affect any future roadway improvements if they were approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner House?
So just so I understand, all 5 of these new trees would be planted at the same time or as other ones die?
The 5 newly proposed trees will be planted at the same time.
Okay. And then the trees that are in decline would be cut down when they reach their end of life?
Yeah, the decline in some it's quite pronounced, but at the same time, there's no real reason to remove them. So we'll kind of continue to monitor them and manage them until they, are completely dead or require removal.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Commissioner Vane, you want to go?
I have a question.
Hold on, they were up first.
I was just being so polite.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're polite.
So when do you anticipate a really optimum time to plant the new trees? Maybe springtime?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Drury, our intent is to plant them prior to the Veterans Day Memorial holiday this year as a commitment to the Garden Club, because they're also holding celebrations of their centennial and they want to be able to feature this project.
And Veterans Day is?
November 11th.
So you're thinking like
soon.
And in fact, and I would defer to Nathan Slack regarding the best time to plant trees, but hopefully it will also rain this year, although they will be receiving supplemental water to be successful.
So my follow-up question would be, why wait till they're dead. I mean, the one, number 9 looks dead already, or close to it. Is there a reason that you wouldn't want to do some prepping?
I think it's Chair Grumbine and Commissioners, I think it's a kind of a difficult question. There's some value, in the trees in their current state, even though the decline is significantly pronounced. I think it's kind of one of those glass half full, half empty kind of conversations. Given the unique nature of it and the very passive use that's there, I think it's safe in terms of managing them, even though they're in significant decline. We do have tentative plans to do some pruning on some, which will improve the aesthetics. There is the remote possibility that pruning could generate some additional growth as a result of just the wounding and the tree's natural response. So I think it's our hope that we could try some of those things before we, kind of pull the trigger and actually remove the trees.
So my follow-up question would be, are you not thinking about November 11th this year? You are thinking about that.
Just as a clarification, for sure, I think they're saying they're planting them before the other ones are dead. They're planting the new ones, and then and when the other ones
now
die.
I was thinking you have to root bore them out and okay, I get it. Thank you.
And just to follow up, the trees we'll be watering them frequently. So it's a pretty good time to plant. We'll do some establishment watering, and then hopefully with a good wet winter, we'll get quick establishment and start to see good growth soon.
Good. Thank you.
Commissioner Vena?
My experience is that olive trees are very resilient, and many times they surprise you and come back. However, sometimes they need a little help, and maybe even just a little cultivation, if so. But certainly some water, if you're planning on watering the others, the forthcoming ones, perhaps you could introduce water to these as they have been doing to the pine trees on Anapamu Street, and reviving them as much as they can. In spite of the whole thing, I think that it might improve the overall appearance of them.
Mr. Lundvik, do you have any questions?
I have a question, yes. Oh, these trees that are going to be removed, any idea of when they were planted?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioners, we did do, and I don't believe we brought with us, but we did do an assessment of all the trees to try to determine which ones we felt were originals and which ones might have cropped up since 1919. In this case, I don't know in these particular ones, but they probably are some of the oldest trees, and Nathan can probably address that more too.
So they're from 1800s?
We do have record that an olive grove was planted in this location around 1890, but we didn't find or weren't provided with any photographic or mapping to determine where they might have been located.
Would the historic grove have been structured as a grove is today? Orthogonal layout?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I don't know how to answer that question.
Perhaps they can do a coring and determine the rings of the trees. And maybe perhaps that way we can determine the more or less age of the tree as time goes.
We'd certainly be happy to explore it. I don't have any specific experience personally doing any coring. I know that that's the only way to really truly accurately identify an old plant's age, at least a woody plant. It would be interesting to find out. With the buttressing and the things that the olives exhibit, it could be difficult to get a true reading, but certainly we could explore it.
I think it'd be fun to know. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
So that's what Ms. Kahn said in a public comment about that little flood zone, kind of a wet area in front of the old pottery ruins. I'm assuming that you would not put trees there for the ground.
Chair Grumbine and Commissioners, I don't believe, it's been such a time, it's been a while since we had enough rain to create that kind of ponding of water. I don't believe where we're proposing to put the trees would, if you look at the elevations on the site plan, the pottery wall is further away.
Any other?
Just to follow up, the proposed locations, which it's not as easily identifiable on the concept plan, but there is a bit of a slope there, and the existing olives are planted really high adjacent to Alameda Padre Serra. So they could be planted in an area that's still representative of the location on the concept plan while still taking into consideration, low areas where that may be a problem at some point in the future.
Okay, any other questions?
I've got a couple of questions.
All right, Commissioner Lee.
Is there any significance in the number of trees that you're proposing to plant? 5 versus 6 versus 8 versus 2 versus, is there any significance in the number?
Chair Grumbine and Commissioners, I think it was a balancing what we thought would be appropriate for the site, given that we're not planning to take any trees out. This is a project that the Garden Club is financing, and so it's through a grant from them to advance them. And just the idea that we want to, take a first effort and see how it goes. On the concept plan, it does show that over time we may be removing more trees, and really just to take a step forward with something that we thought was reasonable and appropriate without overplanting the site. 5, as I recall, was the number that we thought would be a good approach.
Thanks. And then I want to talk about the sign a little bit. Kind of described a little bit about it, but could you describe in more detail, I think this comes after Commissioner Mahan's questions, what's the material of the frame? What's the specific color of the frame? What's the specific material of the sign itself? How is it manufactured? How are the colors determined and the font determined? And is there a graphic artist or communications artist or someone who's assisting in the development of that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm going to field that question. So I did double check on our guidelines, and the frame is aluminum. It's powder coated. It has a very dark brown color to it. It is approximately 3 feet 4 inches tall, has about a 45-degree slant, and the material that the sign's made out of is a phenolic resin. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and we've had a lot of good luck with this material as far as the sun aging in our parks. So that's why we have chosen these materials and gone through the design guidelines to have them approved.
And then how are you accommodating persons of disabilities with the height and the text and the other things that might need to happen?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is a lower sign. The highest part is 3 feet 4 inches at a 45-degree angle. It's well within reach range, and if you're in a wheelchair, you'd still be able to interact with the sign, read it.
Okay. Answer questions? Okay, any other questions?
I have one more.
Question, Commissioner Bain?
Yes. Given the nature of the stone and so forth, perhaps you could put a few companion stones around there to give it a little bit more remarkable thing instead of just a stone placed there. And I can understand that, but stones sometimes like stones, and it might just be able to
Stones
together.
and friends too.
And they sweeten the subject anyway. Thank you.
Okay, that was sounding comment-ish, but
Okay.
we'll roll into comments with that.
Thank you.
Then.
Pardon me.
All right, comments. So, Commissioner Drury.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would echo Commissioner Bain's comment question. I think stones like stones.
I have to repeat that now.
I think stones like stones. I would like to see a 3-stone arrangement, the boulder plus 2 other stones. I think that there's plenty of sandstone around Santa Barbara we could find. I like the project. I think it's been kind of neglected a little bit, that area, and people, I see people, I go by there every day. That's my route. I see people walking through there. It'd be nice to get it spruced up. Thank you.
Commissioner Lembeck?
Yes. Is that sign drawings part of this application?
Yes. Right?
And they were in our set.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the sign drawing is not part of the application. It is just provided for the commission to view if there's any questions. But the sign frame and the sign design is all part of the approved sign guidelines. So what we're just showing you where we're placing
I'll
the
go
sign.
from hold on one second. I'll go to staff for
so as a follow-up, I requested that information as supplemental. It's like the applicant has said, it's not part of the application. The HLC does have purview over locations of the signage, but yeah, the sign content, everything was previously approved by sign committee.
So we do have purview over location.
Yes.
My comment. Is this on? My comment is that I don't know that these, at least the 4 trees that I see, more or less into the field, are anything that would represent a historical placement. To me, they seem arbitrary. I don't even know why I personally don't know why we need those 4 trees. Are they adding anything in the historical context of the property? I don't know. Would they have been there when the pottery shed was being used? I don't know. I personally think that that field would be better served without those trees and with some kind of maintenance in that field to clean up and remove weeds or whatever. But I don't see that these trees are historical or relevant to anything. Period, end.
Okay.
Commissioner Grumbine, I do want to just add that this was a grove of olive trees throughout history. For a long time, the Padres planted olive trees there. That is why it's called Los Olivos Street. And it was noted that it was an olive grove when they put the plaque there.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Levitt.
that could be. Alameda Padre Serra may not have been there at the time, and the grove may have been further away from the potting shed where people might have gathered. Right. I don't know that this represents a grove, quote unquote. I don't know what the placement of trees would have been historically, but I don't know that these trees represent anything historical, at least the placement of the trees. And I don't think they're needed.
Okay. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the sign, the plaque. These trees were planted by the Garden Club of Santa Barbara and Montecito as a memorial peace offering to victory in World War I, 1914 to 1918. So it would seem to me that they were planted soon after the war was over with. They knew that it was over with in 1918. That'd make them about 100 years old. I think if a tree that is 100 years old was planted here to commemorate the victory of World War I, and it's dead, as these pictures show, it should be replaced. And I would support cutting down the old dead trees and replacing them. I think the comment that some water ponds here is probably true, looking at the topo, and it looks like one of your trees is planted in the. There's the pond right there, and maybe this one ought to be moved up to here. But I think that the grove of olive trees is wonderful and is important to the character of the Mission Park area. I would ask that you run all of this past Rob Dayton just to make sure that he's on board with what future plans could be for a roundabout. We really do need a roundabout, but that's not an issue here. I would support the cutting down of the old trees and the planting of the new ones.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner House.
I would agree with Commissioner Mahan's comments. And, I rather feel also that it would be more appropriate to cut down the dying trees and replace them with the new trees rather than just have these rather unsightly trees that I don't know how much, they might sprout some suckers at the base, but I don't think they're going to come back to life as beautiful trees again anytime soon. In deference to Commissioner Lenvick's comments, the only thing that I would note is I seem to recall that the pottery was 50-some feet long. Do you recall? I was reading through the documents you sent. If that's the case, it would seem like its footprint might have extended to where this tree is being planted. Maybe we ought to respect what was the historic footprint of the pottery and put that tree in another location, especially if that's the one that's located in the lowest point.
All right. Commissioner Nemec. No comment? All right. Commissioner Boehner?
Well, I tend to disagree with some of my colleagues, but olive trees have a way of coming back. But if neglected, they'll take a long time in dying, as opposed to us. But I think that giving them a little water wouldn't hurt. It's a good investment. They're there already. And be surprised what they'll do in a year or a couple of years. So, and I don't think they've touched water since the last rain. So, anyway, that's my comment.
All right, and Commissioner Uli.
I support the project. The trees on that parcel have their own value and history, as articulated already. If the Padres had left a brass sign that said, we planted this grove in memory of whatever, then we would know that. But the fact that it's a memorial to World War I success, it seems to me it's our obligation as a society to continue and maintain that memorial. So I support the planting of these trees, but would agree that if you can apply some resources to save the ones that still might come back, then I certainly support that. But if there's a dead one, then get rid of it and plant them appropriately.
All right. And then my own weighing on it, I agree with most of those comments. I think it's a little bit hard because you don't know if they're going to bounce back or not. So it seems like you've kind of provided sort of backup singers to the to the front line here, and that I think in general is a good approach. And then if we can get some of them to spring back, great. Considering it's also the same group that planted it at the beginning, and now they're looking at sort of keeping it going and keeping it alive, I think that's a great thing. And if some of these can bounce back, all the better. And then you've got a little bit bigger than the original grove. So those are my own thoughts. It seems like there's in general support for this as proposed, whether or not there might be a modification on that. For example, I think everyone seemed to be fairly well supportive of trying to get the trees to bounce back, and if they don't, getting rid of them, and if they do, then great, you've got an added thing. But there is definitely some discrepancies between what everyone thought were sort of the best approach versus an okay approach. So I think we're going to have to try to work through a motion.
So, Mr. Chair,
yeah.
And just as a reminder, it is in the project description, but the olive trees currently succumbing to the wilt or in decline are proposed to be replaced on the future. This specific project, I think the applicant referred to it, is being basically sponsored by the Garden Club. So there are budget constraints, I'm sure, associated with that. As it goes per the project description, they will be replacing additional trees in time as appropriate.
So, okay, thank you. I think maybe, in considering all the discussion about wanting to see if the other ones can bounce back, is that a feasible thing as part of this project to look at trying to help them, those that will bounce back?
Yeah, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners, as part of the project, the Garden Club has actually sponsored the purchase of irrigades similar to the ones that are currently used on Anapamu. And their volume is far more than what is going to be required in terms of water use for the the new 24-inch box trees. The nice thing about those is that you can drag hose around, so we can probably find a creative way to get some water to them from those existing arcades that the garden club has donated.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so with that info,
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
I'm ready to make a motion.
all right.
For project design approval and final approval as submitted with the comments that if any of the existing trees can be reestablished. We hope that
Revived, rehabilitated, revived.
Rehabilitated. We would ask that the Parks Department and the Garden Club pursue that. Consider moving the one tree out of the pond, out of the low area, and
then just to be clear, that's tree number 3. And looking at the topography, this is the lowest ring, so that's probably where it ponds, and then from there.
So that would be approval as submitted.
Second. And then Commissioner Mann, as this is a landmark.
We have to have a landmark finding.
Yes, and would you include it's A1?
A1.
And you'll need to state a reason for why.
Going to make the finding A1, the exterior alterations are being made primarily for the purpose of restoring the landmark to its original appearance or in order to substantially aid in the preservation or enhancement of the landmark.
All right.
It's my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann, and with second, Commissioner Uli. Yep, okay.
Under discussion.
Under discussion.
I would just like to reinforce that if this tree that's been suggested to be moved is also being planted where there could be remains of foundations for the old pottery, that would be another reason that it should be moved.
I'll include that in my motion.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
If tree number 3 is located within the original footprint of the pottery, that would be another reason to relocate it.
And for the location to be outside that.
To be outside the footprint of the pottery and any possible remaining foundation.
Yeah. It's probably there under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then the maker of the motion, or in the second was okay with that. So, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries.
Edmonds will abstain, will step down.
Sorry, and Edmund, with Edmund stepping down, and all but Lenvik, and Commissioner Lenvik, if you can state your reason for
Yes,
being opposed.
I'm glad to. I'm opposed to it because I'm not sure that the location of the trees, as I see them, in the dark here, really are representative of the trees planted to represent, to recognize the First World War veterans. The current stone is at the far south edge of this boundary area with a large cluster of olive trees there. I don't know that the string of olive trees that are running on down have anything to do with the memorial, and I don't think it's well thought out.
Okay, thank you. All right. So this can be appealed. There's a 10-day appeal period. This can be appealed in 10 days to City Council. All right.
Did we vote?
We did. You voted for it.
You were
It was unanimous.
You approve anything, don't you?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Edge
We are on to, we are now 11 minutes late, but this is also the last item. So we have 30 minutes of...
2:20.
Okay. So item number 2, this is for project design approval. It's 135 East Ortega. This is, the site is located in El Pueblo Viejo, and adjacent to the historic adobe, the Covaro, adobe, and a building on the city's list of historic resources, the Gampton House. The project site is currently developed with commercial office space and a manufacturing storage building. Proposed to construct a 1,117 square foot ground level office addition at the rear dock under an existing roof canopy, and permit an existing 233 square foot rear utility enclosure. Site improvements include reconfiguration of the existing parking lot paving, including new Americans with Disability Act path of travel walkways and associated parking lot landscaping. Consideration of a waiver for screening is requested to allow the waste and recycling receptacle storage to be partially screened. Development plan approval findings are required for the construction of new non-residential floor area. The project design approval is requested. Project requires consistency with the project compatibility analysis. Development plan approval findings for the construction of a new non-residential floor area, and a waiver for screening to allow the waste and recycling storage to be partially screened. This project requires an environmental finding for CEQA guidelines section 15183 exemption, project consistent with general plan. The project was last reviewed on April 17th, 2019. All right, welcome. Please state your names for the record, and then we'll go to staff for comments, and we'll read the last summary.
I'm not sure.
Thank you.
If you can press, there we go.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Grumbine and members of the Commission. I'm Gowdy Mission with LMA Architects, here today with our landscape architect, Robert Adams, and the owner, Chuck Gondolfo. We are here today to follow up on our April presentation, from which we took away comments to further work through our designs and also, I think, return with a more complete set of elevations and information.
Okay, great. I'm going to cut in there for a minute, and we'll have some staff comment, and then we'll read our comments from before.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Since it has been a while since you've reviewed this project, in the time span since you last reviewed it, it was going through the process of application completeness review, and it was deemed complete as of last week. So a number of the things that are noted in the footer for today in conjunction with the request for project design approval is the project compatibility criteria. If you do decide to grant any kind of approval at this hearing, you will need to go through the project compatibility criteria and state why the project is consistent with that criteria. This project also includes a development plan approval finding for the non-residential additions that's required in our municipal code, that anytime you do an addition of over 1,000 square feet, so between 1,000 and 3,000, the design review board would make a finding for development plan approval for that non-residential square footage. It also includes a waiver for screening of a trash enclosure with the applicant will present on the plans. It is partially screened currently. So I will be providing you a list of the findings associated with this project. So that includes the development plan approval, the screening for the trash enclosure, and lastly, the CEQA 15183. It was reviewed by staff and determined to qualify for a CEQA exemption 15183. So you'll just need to include that in your final motion if you decide to grant project design approval today.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Clark. All right. Okay, so now I will read our comments from before. Okay, so there was on April 18th, was it? April 17th. The motion was to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Include the footprint and location of the adjacent properties in the site plan. 2, provide aerial photos and thorough photo boards of the site from multiple angles to give the Commission a better understanding of the site. 3, provide thorough renderings of the screen from the Casa Covarrubias Adobe property. 4, fencing should be consistent with El Pueblo Viejo guidelines.
Thank you.
5, consider solutions to meet the required parking area landscape standards. 6, identify the as-built utility enclosure existing as unpermitted and provide photos of the structure. 7, The office addition needs to fit within El Pueblo Viejo guidelines. 8, the gate needs to fit within El Pueblo Viejo guidelines. The commission appreciates the removal of the wrought iron. 9, show the show and identify existing trees on the landscape plan. The motion was by Mahan, second by Edmonds. It was 5-0-0. House, Uli, Vena, and Drury were absent. The motion carried. So I'll also ask that those who are absent, if you did not review the tape, you can ask questions, but please do not vote. And then if you can, in your presentation, go through those comments as well, and anything else that changed in part of this, please kind of highlight those as the key.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman Grombine. Members of the Commission, we have gone back and working with staff and Creeks. We have undertaken to redesign the parking lot to introduce additional landscaping and to rebalance the numerical count of the parking, and also to address the permeability of the design. The current parking lot exists as a gravel parking lot at this time.
Here, if you can use the pointer and kind of walk us through.
Yes. So the current parking entrance is in this location here, coming in on as the aisle in this direction. We are reversing that to shift the driveway entrance to this side. We are continuing to maintain a current access for the adjoining residential property, which is under common ownership, through the aisle here to this back corner. The parking count stands at 15 and is designed in a way to break it up with suitable landscaping on all sides, which our landscape architect will address here shortly. Moving to the center of the site, the location here for the proposed addition is in the rear of the structure, the existing structure, and is entirely under an existing steel high bay canopy that dates back to the early 70s. We are also, in conjunction with this expansion, defining a new off-site right-of-way access for ADA, and that is planned along the rear section here, entering at this location. We did examine alternatives to that from the front along Ortega, and these would have caused us to have modified and demolished some existing stone walls here at great expense, but I think also which are key to the historical nature of the property. So we opted to provide a less intrusive option for entry into the site along this section of the property here to access the addition as well as the main building. There are 2 tenants currently on the property. The primary, larger one here, Advanced Scientific Concepts, is going to be the occupant for the addition. There is a secondary, smaller tenant located in this location that enjoys a combination of the back building and the front building, which is a contractor manufacturing type use. The back building is storage entirely. The front is an office use. We do have a combination of parking, which occurs in this zone here, as well as the adjoining parking area. We are proposing a total of 23, and we are also modifying our van accessible ADA stall to be compliant. We are also doing some select modifications along the parkway, and we'll get into those shortly. On-site, we are revising a small area here along Santa Barbara Street to increase the permeability of the groundscape, and we are addressing replacement of the right-of-way sidewalk in that location that has deteriorated, and we are eliminating an abandoned old curb cut that has lingered for many, many years. In addition to the expansion here in the rear, we are also addressing other issues on the property. For example, fire protection. We are sprinklering the entire building over time. We are addressing a sound attenuation problem from equipment that is in this corner by creating solid wall enclosure to block sound that is emanating off-site. We are also addressing an issue of screening rooftop mechanical equipment on this back section here, screening that from the public right-of-way. Our current trash enclosure or trash area is in this location, somewhat removed and deep into the property, but there is visibility from along Santa Barbara looking in, and so we are proposing to screen that area from the street so that for anyone passing by looking in, those dumpsters would not be seen. Those are the key elements. We are also working to, on a separate permit, extract an old abandoned fuel tank. So we are addressing some other environmental issues on the property as well. I'm going to turn this over to Robert Adams, our landscape architect, to walk you through the changes on the landscape side.
Robert Adams, landscape architect. Okay, so we've been hard at work, including a lot more landscaping around all the edges of the parking. I think that was a comment we heard loud and clear. We also include, where we can, in the finger planters and the front planter, evergreen trees. We have a sketch of looking back from the adobe back to the property in terms of that storage unit they have in the existing trees. There's an existing date palm here and the existing fig tree here. So this is all improved.
Page L1.
L1. And then we have identified all the existing plant material on these parkways. We're actually wanting to do a big improvement here, which is drought-tolerant ground cover, Diamondia, real low, drought-tolerant, tough, with some simple sandstone ways to get from possible car parking to the sidewalk, just introducing a bit of that and adding I believe a couple trees where they're missing or dead here along here, these parkways. What else? Oh, and then we have vines on the wall because it's kind of a blank wall. So we have just a geometric trellis that's just very simple with 2 vines per trellis to grow up into it with a vine that grows quite well. And here's the elevation showing how that might look, showing the trees that we're going to introduce and these simple trellis elements. And that's it. I think the landscape's come a long way. Thanks for the comments. I think it improved the project. And of course, we have permeability throughout this parking area here, which is terrific. That's all I have.
Okay.
Commissioner Grumbine, we also added into the set elevations from both Ortega and Santa Barbara, and we included a roof plan as well. This indicates the roof plan, and it is a combination of a second-story element with a mission tile roof, a lower single-story flat section here, with a surround parapet, and then the larger area, which is a metal roof structure, which partially covers the footprint of the existing building. And then in the back here, you can see the separate structure, which is detached. This indicates the line of the new roof screening that we are introducing in order to block the vision of that from the street. And here's an enlargement of that. And then this is a detail of that particular screen. Also, I want to point out that we are providing for the detailing of the trash enclosure. We have a 7-foot high screen fence that will block the vision of that. And that trash screening would be beyond the extent of the fence that we have. This is the vehicle entrance at Santa Barbara Street. So we've introduced these elevations in response to the comments from before to get a better understanding of the scale and configuration. This elevation, of course, is along Santa Barbara, and we've provided a photo of that as well. And then, of course, the marquee entrance of the original 2-story building that dates back to the 20s, I believe. Chuck, isn't that correct? Yes. So we've provided this information as well. The fencing, I want to point out.
Sheet A6?
We are on A6, yes. The
A6?
So what I wanted to point out on this sheet is that we are addressing what we would like to introduce as new fencing to replace the existing. This is the corner of the structure that is currently set up with a series of wood louvers, which we feel are inappropriate to the architecture, but I think more critically do not provide sound attenuation for the equipment that this area screens. So we are proposing to remove the wood louvers and to infill that area solid to the existing roof line to match the building that it adjoins. And that will provide for the dampening of the sound that currently we experience intermittently when compressors go on in that area. This is the area I also want to point out where we have the 200, I think it's 33 feet of structure that was enclosed. This encompasses an existing utility room and was the unpermitted portion referenced in the previous submittal. It is entirely plastered to match the existing building, and immediately then inside of that is the area undercover, which comprises the portion of the building that is to be expanded. And again, this is completely out of sight from any vantage point along either of the two frontages. And that basically concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. And actually, because there's a lot of, can you go through the just the items at a time, just because there's a lot more that we're seeing now than we did originally, and just kind of point out where they are, and so we can make sure we have our heads into it. So we asked for the item 1 was to include the footprint and location of adjacent properties on the site plan. And I think that was in reference especially to the Adobe and to the other buildings that were, we wanted to see how it all related to the neighbor. Do you have that?
What we've tried to do with the Adobe is to provide you with the aerial photos.
Okay, so if you can walk us
Sure.
through those.
So this is the property line here at the back of our site, and there is a access way, of course, that runs parallel with the property line, and the Adobe has a series of storage buildings that back up onto the property line to ours. There is a trash enclosure in this location that backs up onto the common property line, and a very tall hedgerow, about 12 feet high, that runs along this entire back frontage. And there will be no change to that. That hedgerow does, of course, entirely screen the view looking onto the backside of our structure here. And I will point out to you the detached building that also backs out up onto the property line. And then here is the current gravel parking lot that is part of our property. And then on the other side of that is the two-story residence, which is historically significant.
Okay, and then maybe go through the rest of the photos here and kind of call them out as well, because I think that's also part of our item number 2, provide aerial photos.
Sure. So this is the tall hedgerow on the common property line to the museum. This is the trash enclosure on the museum side. And then looking back into the corner, you can see some of the additional storage buildings that the museum employs for their use. And then these are other views. They also have a rail gate that accesses their driveway. This is the existing fence on our property that is going to be replaced, and you can see the hedgerow that is on the common property line. This is the back corner of our building, in which we are looking to replace the louvers and infill this area, and then this is the part of the structure that is deemed unpermitted. The rooftop units that you can see that are exposed, that we are planning to screen out.
Mr. Chair? Yes, Commissioner Dre. So those two photographs side by side, we're looking out on Santa Barbara Street.
So, sorry, which?
The two that were just, those two. Top one.
City TV, if you could zoom out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Santa Barbara Street.
So you're looking out across the right away from Santa Barbara Street.
That's right. And then this is the hedgerow that's on the common property line with the museum.
Between the museum and.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yes.
divides it.
Right.
It's
right.
a mixed hedge, mainly ivy. Yeah, it's a visual thing, and it's plenty high.
And then here you can see the continuation of that hedgerow back along that property line.
Okay, great. Okay, we also asked for provide thorough renderings of the screen from the Casa Adobe property. Do you have those?
Well, I have that sketch that I pointed out. I have that sketch.
Okay.
Which.
The elevation?
No, it's mainly.
Oh, there.
This
Okay.
sketch. It's just looking back at the back property where they have a temporary storage unit, I think, that was recently graffitied. And then the fence line at the back.
Okay.
Looking to see what they would see right back there. So I know it's small, but I wanted to include it.
Yep. If you could zoom in. Let's scoot this down onto
The storage there is an enclosed container type building that they use.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And the fence that's existing there is entirely on their side of the property line. That is the museum's fence.
Yeah, it's a wood fence.
Yeah.
All right, and then we had a comment that fencing should be consistent with the Pueblo Viejo guidelines. Then we had to consider solutions to meet the required parking area landscape standards. Looks like you went over that. Identify the as-built utility enclosure existing as unpermitted and provide photos of the structure. Did that. And then the office addition needs to fit with the public VO guidelines. The gate needs to fit, okay, and then show and identify existing trees in the landscape plan. So,
Yep. All along here, they're all identified and marked.
Okay, if you can just
What
point out
varieties
all
are
these
they?
street
Point out
trees. Here, podocarpus. Here, palm trees along this parkway, existing.
In the park,
Great.
and in the parking lot. Varieties.
These are proposed. This is the big tree, and this ghost right here
I know,
is
what-
the
what
big
varieties are-
canary.
what varieties are you
Canary
proposing?
Island date palm.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
back there.
I mean
the proposed.
Oh, the proposed. This was the the strawberry tree, arbutus.
Okay.
Okay.
Great
All right.
canopy and shade, evergreen tree.
Great. I just want to make sure we got through all those. Okay, so does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does, Chairman.
Okay, thank
The
you.
only thing I want to mention is we do
Oh, yeah,
have
there we
some
go.
details for drip irrigation as well. So we're water conserving and all that. So we're thinking about conserving water here.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so now we'll open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Drury. L1. All right, hold on 1 second. Let's get to L1, and then you can restate your question.
The curb cut on Santa Barbara Street, which is in the middle of nowhere, basically, will be removed or filled in and then part of the
Yes.
ongoing landscape
Yes.
plan. Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner.
Is this, is this a driveway here?
Yes, it is.
Is it, you drive over the landscaping?
No.
That should be out of there.
That's correct. Yeah, that
Over the
is
top.
that is an error.
Okay, and so they come in here, is this a two-way in or is this a one-way in?
This is a two-way.
And they come and they park here, but they can go out here if they want, or they can go
Yes,
back out there?
That's correct.
And the other question, let's see, where's the elevation where you show this little screen here? The compressor screen?
Back.
This, you don't show it on this elevation here. Oh, no, that's the front elevation.
That's this one here, yes.
Is that what you're proposing?
No, what we're proposing by way of the other elevation is to enclose this entirely and replace the fence. This is an existing.
Do you have a proposed elevation?
Yes, that was, I believe, what I had pointed out here. So this is the enlargement of what you saw, and this shows the existing louvers that are to be removed.
So this is going to be a new stucco wall here?
Yes, it will be.
And what's this up here?
That is the screening for the mechanical that sits on top, set back from this elevation.
What is it made? It looks like it's
slats.
It's a metal parapet that will be painted to match the body color of the existing building.
Why couldn't you do a stucco screen up there that would be compatible with this Spanish colonial revival building here that's existing? Why shouldn't this be stucco to?
Well, it could very well be. It's a matter of detailing it in a way that we can properly drain behind it. It is set back a bit from the edge.
Do you have a roof plan that shows that?
Yes, we do. That would be here. So this is the location that we're talking about. This is the enlargement. This is
And this is the screen wall here?
This is the perimeter of the wall below. The screen is here, returning back on two sides.
Where's this Santa Barbara Street on this?
Santa Barbara Street's
Street's
over
over
here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is over on this side, yes.
So in the existing, where you show the existing Santa Barbara elevation, Santa Barbara Street elevation, there it is.
Right.
So you don't show what you're proposing here in terms of.
No, this is meant to be an existing condition. So the equipment sits above in this location, and this is the area here that is proposed to be screened above this section.
Back to A6.
So this is just the existing plant elevation.
That's all this is, yes. This is just for reference. So this is the condition
This
that
is proposed.
that is proposed, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Drury?
On A1.1, the parking lot, so is that?
Hold on one second. Let's get there first.
And then Commissioner Jury, is your microphone on? Seems a little.
Just prime
Thank
you.
A1.1.
There we go. I think it's one more. There's so many. There we go. All right, we're there.
So you come in off of Ortega, and there are all these parking places and landscaping, and then there's an, is that an exit, or that just goes to the carport?
This here?
Yeah.
That just goes to the carport.
And the carport is not part of the project, it's on another property?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're going to allow your neighbor to park in the carport?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It's their carport.
Hmm?
Is that right? Is their carport? Yeah. Okay. Just want
Existing.
to make sure. That's their existing
Yeah.
carport.
Yeah.
Their
Right.
It's just accessed by the project's property. Is that right?
That's right. That's a condition that has existed for many, many years, and we will be addressing that with a covenant of easement to make it official.
That's right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Yeah, Commissioner Lenvik?
Yes, you have the colored photos that were
Yep.
ready. When I look at A3, the photo up in the corner, A3.
Eighth, 1.3?
A3. 3.0 or A3.
It seems to me that that hedge line is on your property.
Looking at photo E,
Yes.
maybe?
Yeah. And looking at that photo G, it would appear that that hedge line is on your property.
May I clarify?
Yes,
Pardon me?
please.
May I
Yep, it's a
clarify?
question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. The actual planting is on the museum side. It is growing through the fence and appears to originate on our side.
So when you trim that back, which I think you're going to do to accomplish what I see, at least in A 0.0, of a trash enclosure and
Hold on, let's get to it.
driveway, that it would appear to me that that hedge is going to be pretty much decimated. Is that correct?
So you're saying to get this.
It'll grow back.
No,
Okay. He says it'll go back.
yes. Our intent is only to introduce the screen in this location here. The hedgerow, we feel, is a vital element to preserve and maintain.
I would agree.
And the intent is only to selectively prune, but to allow that to flourish and remain.
Good. Good.
I concur.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question of staff. Could you go over for me if there are any exceptions in the project to the general plan or zoning requirements? Are there any exceptions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Uli. There are no specific findings that are in contradiction with the general plan. It was reviewed and found consistent with the general plan. Yeah.
All right. All right. So no more questions. We will move on to comments. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, well, I like the improvements to the parking lot to the west. I think that's very good. I like the landscaping along the sidewalk. I think that's certainly an improvement to the area. I think that see if I get my pointer, yeah, that this part of the new construction here that's going to attach onto this existing building, this is a nice building, and I think that what you do here, including the screen for the compressors, needs to be very compatible with the existing architecture, and when you're all done, it should feel like it was always there, and not be something that looks different. So I think that needs further consideration and study. But generally speaking, I think that the project is certainly moving in the right direction.
Okay. Commissioner Vena?
My only comment is that on the trees that you selected for the parking lot, they don't necessarily have large canopy characteristics, and as such, I don't know what kind of shade you're expecting, but if you're not expecting too much shade, then you have the right tree.
Okay, Commissioner Uli?
I don't have any comments.
All right. Commissioner Drury? I do not. All right. Commissioner Lenvik?
No.
Commissioner Nemec?
I agree with Commissioner Vena about the trees. I just don't think it's appropriate for that area. Also, yeah, that's it. Oh, and I agree about the screening of the equipment on top of the roof. I believe it should be more in line with the characteristics of the building.
Okay. Commissioner Edmonds?
I agree with the comments about the screening of the equipment, but I also just want to say that I really like these steel trellis features that you're intermittently putting in there.
Okay. Okay, so I would say for myself, similar comments, or a couple additional comments would be that although the photos do help to very much help to tell a story more and be much more clear about now where things are, and at least in general are, I think it still really we should have that survey past the property line and know on site plan where things really line up, because it's helpful. This is much more helpful than before in terms of understanding it, but it is, I think, still important to actually know where those pieces are, especially when we're judging it to a landmark.
Very important.
Yeah, very important to see that relationship and just be comfortable knowing that where it is, and we can guess based on the photos, but it's still it's not definitive enough. So I think that still needs to be brought into it.
And isn't that a requirement for the plan set at any rate? That the site plan indicate that information? Yeah. The photographs.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumpine and Commissioner Lee. So yeah, one of the requirements is to provide information about what's on the adjacent properties. And one of that can be done through building footprints, also provided in renderings as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chair, that the comment should be that we need to have the footprints of the adjacent buildings on the plans, because the plans are the record.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the aerial photos are nice, but they aren't necessarily part of the record.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then in terms of, I agree in terms of the screening this element. I think it needs to be integrated as well into the building, the look of the building as well with this. The steel trellis, I would say it's on the right path, but I think it still needs to be more in the El Pueblo Viejo. It's getting towards the wrought iron side of things, feeling it, but let's see where that. I want to pull it up here just for visual reference.
L1.
L1. Yeah.
L1.
So as an element,
geometry.
yeah. So as an element, I think this is nice as a screening, helpful screening element. But I think it still needs a little bit more. The geometry needs. This is still feeling a little on the modern side or of the screening technique. So it's kind of working towards it, but I think it still needs to feel that Spanish feel a little more. It could be the same size and it could be the same general structure, like the size of the pieces. But that's my feeling on it and my comment on it. I don't know if other commissioners agree with that, but
We might.
What's that?
We might.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
is it possible to go back to questions?
Yeah, sure.
I feel somewhat dim-witted today.
We've got a whole afternoon ahead of us.
Well, let's not. Let's not do that. But I'm looking at A6. When Commissioner Mahan suggested that particular north elevation, the vehicle and ADA access.
A6, did you say?
A6 is important. Do we allow tube steel? Because the gate they're going to replace the chain link fencing and replace with 3/4 inch square tube steel. My understanding is that we just use solid stock.
If it's 3/4 inch, it's not going to. It probably won't be tube.
Where are you reading? Where are you reading that?
Okay, I'm on page A6.
Note underneath the gate.
The partial north elevation Santa Barbara pedestrian accessible vehicle entry. The description is 3/4 inch square tube.
3/4 inch square tube steel rail section. So back into the question.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. No, that's not true.
Well, he might be able to.
You could lift it with your. Anyway. So I'm just saying I don't remember ever allowing tube. Is it square stock?
Well, so some of it will be tube. Oh, well, it's a question.
Or
I
just
guess.
yes.
Or is it a question of the commission, or is it a question? Is it?
No, it's both. It's a question of what is that going to be made of? Is that acceptable in El Pueblo Viejo?
Do the standards allow for that?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner.
I would say that it is not acceptable in El Pueblo Viejo. Such tube steel has rounded edges, and solid bar has a sharp square edge, and that's the traditional iron, and it should be a traditional. It should be made out of wrought iron.
Mm-hmm.
But then if that's the case, it's going to be extremely heavy. Will it be a rolling or a swinging gate?
They have it on.
It's swinging.
Swinging.
It's swinging, yes.
But mechanical? I mean, a mechanical swing?
No, it's entirely a manual gate.
Okay.
Commissioner Mann?
Typically these very gates like this have a plate at the bottom, and usually it's a decorative plate. It might have hearts cut out of it, or something, but it's a plate, so it's like a plate girder. They build the bottom so it's like a plate girder, and then they put the ironwork on top of it. But that plate is what is the structural part of the gate, and you'll see those all over Montecito and different places. And so I miss that, but I think that should be reconsidered.
Okay. All right. So I guess the comment would be to make it the gate. It's getting more traditional, I think, from before.
Yeah.
But to keep working on that traditional look with solid steel pickets and a base plate as
plate
girder for structure.
Yeah.
So that girder plate would be a foot high, perhaps?
Well, it depends on the proportions. I think we have to leave that up to the architect to decide what's right.
Yeah, okay.
A 12-inch plate girder would be pretty structural, yes. Mm-hmm.
13 and a quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll back into comments. So let's. I'll take I'll take other comments weighing in on the iron trellis as well. Do other commissioners feel similarly?
I think that it's headed in the right direction, but it needs to be more appropriate to El Pueblo Viejo. Maybe it needs to have some legs so that it looks like it's on the ground rather than just hanging on the fence.
But
maybe it needs to have a couple of knuckles, and maybe it needs to have a couple of spikes at the top, or something to make it, to soften it and make it more traditional.
But if it's expected for a vine to grow on this, or vines, it's going to cover it up.
Yeah, we want the vines to get all through it and fill.
No, the principle is perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just say to make it fit more into El Pueblo Viejo, because it could just be a geometry thing. It might not need the details. So it might just need.
Especially being so close to a significant building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe you can reuse rebar like they do on the windows of the.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
May I go into comments for myself, please?
Sure, for yourself.
So what I don't see in this partial north elevation is how it's going to look.
Sheet?
A6.
Okay.
I don't see how that, where the louvers were in the photograph, how that is going to look when it's done. I would like to see that.
Oh, okay. So you're saying on
A6.
A6 detail
North
3,
elevation.
detail
4A5.
Yeah.
4A6. Pardon me. Yeah, I'd like to see. I mean, that's an important.
Oh, you're saying the photograph. This one right here. A rendering of this. You want to not just elevation, CAD drawn elevation.
No, I don't want. I want to see something as clear as the drawings on the front of the.
It's not a complete
south
elevation.
No. I mean, just that particular. That's really the only part of the north elevation that's being worked on. Is my understanding. So I think it would be good for the public and certainly good for me visually, if I get an idea of what this is
How
going
it
to look
connects
like.
to the rest of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's why it should be on. It should be on. It should
Commissioner
be on
Mayhan's.
A6.1.
Which they have the rest of the building already.
Yeah.
So
we can see how it's compatible.
All right.
Yes, exactly.
Hold on, let me write that.
So the area of alteration needs to be made more visually, more visual, how it's going to look. Because you won't have those louvers, is my understanding. Those, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's my comment. Otherwise, I think the project's
And I would
fine.
add to that comment that it probably is best to show it in perspective, because you also have a depth issue with the screening wall versus the front wall. So showing it as a perspective similar to the photograph would also be helpful for understanding how those different planes actually work.
You mean down the driveway?
So this photograph that they have, that's the
Right.
4.
Right.
That's a perspective because it's a photograph, right?
Right.
So if they did the same thing, that's existing. So if they did the same thing in perspective of what's proposed, that'll allow us to really see how the difference in wall plane of the screening wall, which is set back from the front wall, will all play out.
And Mr. Chair, would it be also then we would see the from the area of alteration down the driveway of the building itself? Because that's the only part that the public's ever going to see is when they walk by.
Oh, you mean scoot over the view a little bit so you're standing
So
right
we
down
see
there.
what that elevation
Yeah,
looks
okay,
like.
that sounds
which would
good.
be what the west elevation,
Well, it's
I guess. No, let's see, if
It's-
this is north.
It's the detail 4 just putting the view right at the driveway so that you see down the driveway and you'll see the building on
Yeah.
the left. Okay.
So it's actually probably the east elevation we're looking at on Santa Barbara Street. Not the north elevation.
It is the east.
Yeah, the east elevation. So the north elevation runs down the driveway. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm completely
Yeah.
set.
Mr. Chair, I
Commissioner
think we should consider. I would like to consider a motion for a 2 weeks continuance for the.
So, Mr. Chair, the next agenda is currently full. So the soonest you could be scheduled would be October 30th, which is a 4-week continuance.
4-week continuance for the applicant to show the adjacent buildings outside of the property line, the footprint of the adjacent buildings outside of the property line on these drawings, and to on a drawing such as the east elevation on A6.1 to show the corner, I guess it would be the northeast corner, how that addition will be altered to relate to the existing Spanish colonial revival architecture, including the screen that screens the mechanical equipment, and study the revisions to the gates to make them more appropriate to El Pueblo Viejo, along with the grills, the trellises for the landscaping, to be more traditional, and restudy the trees in the west parking lot for more canopy. Correcting the sidewalk landscaping where the driveway comes out onto, is it Ortega Street? Yeah. And a perspective sketch of the northeast corner of the building so we can see how that works, how it turns the corner there aesthetically. And what else am I missing, Mr. Chair? The gate, no, I included that to restudy the gate.
More, yeah, to be more EPV and traditional, and then the trellis to be more traditional.
Commissioner Mahan, did you include a request for the footprint of all adjacent buildings?
Yeah.
What was that?
The request for footprint of all adjacent buildings.
Yeah, I started off with that.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got that. Let's see. The perspective. And that just to, even though it was said previously, but just the new construction on the area of alteration needs to conform to the existing Spanish colonial.
Be compatible.
Be compatible.
Yes, yeah. Be compatible with
existing.
And with overall comment that we think this is headed in the right direction. We like the new parking lot, and I think the layout of the other parking is greatly improved. So
we will start with that one.
Yeah, we want to compliment the applicant for proceeding in the correct direction, and we need these other minor items corrected, and then I think we can give it design approval in 4 weeks.
Point of clarification, Chairman Grumbine. For depicting the adjacent buildings, are you also referring to the storage structures?
To the what?
The detached storage structures on the museum site.
Sure. We want to see the driveway, the storage structures, everything that's on their adjoining property, so we can get a sense of what's going on.
Okay.
But I don't think we have to show the. Can I see the photograph? We don't. You just have to show this wall here, not the whole building. This carport here, and that's stuff along here. But I don't think we need to get in. Yeah. We don't need to get into
the whole property. We just need where
adjacent. Right. Well, just so we have a record of what's on the other side of the property line in these drawings. I think that's important.
I'll make a second to that motion.
Second. All right. Oh, too slow. Commissioner Edmonds.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Yeah. Under discussion, Commissioner Lenvik.
I didn't have the opportunity to make comments.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, let's undo the whole thing.
I think we ought to back up.
Well, we're now under discussion.
My
so you can comment.
My only comment is that this as-built enclosure addition, with its equipment on the roof and the screen, if that was brought to us today, would we have approved the way this is being finished, in that the existing roof is there and the wall comes up to it. There's no parapet, there's no cornice. We don't know, I have no idea what the drainage is. Is it off the edge of the roof? And I'm just saying, if we had, you look at A6, that elevation, both the north and the east elevation, would we have asked for...
A6.1 or
No, just A6.
Okay.
Along that elevation of the existing building, right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And as it turned the corner, the elevation below you, if that came before us today as a new structure, what would we have asked of that structure?
Well, this is existing, isn't it?
It's unpermitted without the benefit of review and approval.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drew?
I think that's a good point. That's really the only, that east elevation is the area of that we're talking about. I think that we would probably ask it to be a continuation of the existing roof line.
We might have. We
might have had some.
certainly, I don't think would have approved. If you look at section 2 on A4, you see that section 2 on A4? Right there up to the very top, right hand.
Yep.
No, go over to the detail. One more. That's existing construction. A wall and a roof meeting. They're planes meeting.
Of this.
No parapet, no indication of where the drainage could go, no gutter, nothing that would normally be on a project that came before us for consideration to be constructed. That was not permitted and was constructed without our purview originally. And I think it deserves to be dealt with in a manner which it would have been if it had been brought before us.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Point of clarification, if I might.
Sure.
The existing roof that encompasses that unpermitted structure was permitted in the past. What was unpermitted was the infill wall up to it. Now, that doesn't
I agree.
justify what was done. It's simply that the roof structure there was part of the original permitted.
Edge, you might have.
That's correct.
Thing would be for a building, a structure like that. And I'm simply saying that with that being known, I think that we are obligated to the ordinance to see a piece of architecture there that at least gets close to the existing building that is adjoining. I'm not saying we should see nice fluted cornices and all that kind of stuff, but I think we should at least get close visually to what's there now.
I agree, and I'd like to add that to my motion that we should give consideration that wall. We should consider that as a new wall, and it should be appropriate to the architecture on the corner there. And the applicant needs to give consideration to how that wall would terminate in a manner that would be appropriate to El Pueblo Viejo.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. All right. So we've got the maker of the motion, the seconder agreeing. All right. So under any more discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner
So
Drew?
I agree with Commissioner Lenvik, and I thank you for noticing the. There's also an opportunity because there's a window, and then there's this fairly large chunk of wall extending to the proposed
what sheet are you
gate.
on?
A6, same elevation.
Lower left.
Now it's the partial east elevation, I think we've determined. So there's an opportunity maybe for some little architectural detail in that blank wall.
Maybe not.
Maybe not, but there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity not to do it too, Commissioner Lenvik. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
One abstention by Vina, and motion carries. All right, we'll see you in 4 weeks. Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Lenvick. That was
You start doing anything prior to 4 weeks?
catch. 2 weeks out is already booked. It's all full.
I'm just asking, is there
Oh.
any way we can start on part of the project while we're doing this, so we don't lose a tenant, a big tenant? They're being pushed pretty hard by, you know.
That part's out of our
Yeah,
control.
that's not subject to this board's review. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Chair Grumpine, can you adjourn the meeting?
Oh, yes. And the meeting is adjourned.